This is John Cola with OKRaw.com. Today I have another exciting episode for you, and what we're going to do today is answer a viewer's questions. So I often get questions over the YouTube email system, also on my channel page under the comments or discussion area. And today I figured I'd answer one of those for you guys. I don't answer questions a whole lot on this channel, but I thought I'd do that because this is an important question for me to answer because it's not being addressed by too many people, and in my opinion, there may be some misinformation out there. So let's get to that question. Viewer named Alan wrote in, said, "Hi John, I'm a longtime fan of your YouTube videos and purchased a juicer from you." Why, thank you. I've never heard you or other raw food advocates on YouTube that I regularly watch mention quote unquote hybrid foods. I understand that foods have been altered for hundreds or more years, not even including GMOs. Another thing I heard is that you shouldn't eat carrots and should not do colonics and should not eat soy. I've never heard you mention the last two, though some other raw foodists YouTubers do emphasize colonics. Alright, Alan, so there's a couple things. I guess I'll answer the easiest question first, is the last part of your question about no carrots, no colonics, no soy. I think carrots are a perfectly okay food to include in your diet. I don't like not including foods. I want to include foods. Are carrots the staple of my diet? Absolutely not. Will I make some carrot juice when I'm traveling and I can't get any good organic fruits, but I can get organic carrots and juice them? Absolutely. Will I juice carrots sometimes in my mixed vegetable juice to add some extra nutrition in there and some beta carotene? Absolutely. Will I only ever juice orange carrots like the kind you get at the store? No. I strive to seek out new pleasures and foods in life. So I found, heirloom carrots and even grown my own heirloom carrots. I have past episodes on heirloom carrots that actually have a much lower sugar content than the more modern orange carrots of today. And the different color carrots that come in different colors like yellow, red, purple, and white have different levels of nutrition and antioxidants and phytochemicals that are good for us. So, I would never say no carrots. Would I say make a diet out of carrots? No, I would say include some carrots in your diet. They're definitely a healthy food, once in a while, and I do juice them also once in a while. Let's see, no colonics. So my thoughts on colonics real quick. I think colonics have their place. I think you should not get hooked on colonics, and some people may tend to overdo colonics. I like to maybe do colonics once a year, that kind of for like a nice tune-up. I feel nice, clean, and airy after a colonic hydrotherapy session. But I think we have bowels and muscles in our bowels for a reason, and they need to move things out. And if you do colonics too much, then your bowels will get lazy because it's like a muscle. If you're working your muscles, you're going to build a muscle. And if you're not using your bowels, they're going to get lazy and you're going to depend on colonics. That being said, when I first got into raw foods, I did a lot of colonics. Actually, I went on a cleanse program and did colonics once a week for a period of time. So I think it can be a good way to remove some toxins if you are just getting started. But of course, you guys need to consult a medical practitioner before you do anything. What I'm stating in this video is my opinions on what I would do for myself, and I can't necessarily say what you should or should not do. Let's see, last you talked about no soy. So soy foods in the way that they're currently being eaten, the majority in the United States, is terrible, and I do not agree with. And what I mean by that is most of the soy is, number one, GMO soy, and number two, eaten in a fractionated form. So it's made into tofu, made into, soy milk. It's made into soy burgers. It's made into all kinds of crazy stuff and processed very heavily. I think soy is an okay food to include sometimes in your diet. And what I like to look to for answers is nature and history in the past. Soy comes from Asia, and in the past, Asian cultures would use small amounts of soy, sometimes even every day, but small amounts. They wouldn't make their meal like a soy-based diet. It'd be, maybe 2 tablespoons a day of fermented soy. If you don't remember anything else, remember that, fermented soy. It's very important to ferment the soy to get rid of some of the naturally occurring toxins before you consume it. Plus, once you ferment it, actually there's more nutrition in there because there's some bacteria in there that produce vitamin K2 and also very important enzymes that can be beneficial for us. So I do include some miso, soy-based miso, and also non-soy-based miso sometimes. And also I include natto, which is probably even far better than the miso, in my opinion, is the natto. So I do include natto, which is a fermented food in my diet in small amounts. Next, let's get into the topic of the hybridized foods, and I want to read you guys a few things because people may not understand the word hybrid. I mean, there's a lot of confusion out there. The first thing I want to do is actually define what a hybrid is, and I looked at the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. And according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, which I'm going to be going off of, a hybrid is an offspring of two animals or plants of different races, breeds, varieties, species, or genera. So, for example, if I had or made love to a nice, I don't know, Latin woman, right? Our offspring, our child, would be a hybrid. If I made love to African American woman, then our offspring would be a hybrid. If I made love to a white girl, our offspring would be a hybrid. I mean, no matter what, the offspring's always going to be a hybrid when you make love, or two animals make love, or reproduce or whatnot. And the same thing goes with plants. When two plants, get horny, I don't know how they get horny, but they pass their pollen between one another and they kind of commingle. That makes a hybrid. So, in nature, hybrids happen naturally. We are all hybrids. I mean, think about it. If the world was created and there's Adam and Eve was the first two people on Earth, what if we were all clones of Adam and Eve? We were either little Adams or little Eves. That'd be really boring, right? That's my definition of a hybrid. Let's get into now a definition that I found online. What are hybrid foods? Hybrid foods will not grow in nature. They are crossbred food which must be nurtured and protected by humans, or else they'll be overcome by birds, insects, worms, fungi, bacteria. Some common hybrid fruits are seedless apples, several date varieties like kiwis, seedless pineapples, seedless citrus fruit, seedless grapes, seedless persimmons, seedless watermelons. Common hybrid vegetables include beets, carrots, corn, potatoes, celery, and cauliflower. Common hybrid nuts and seeds and beans include cashews, oats, rice, wheatgrass, soy, legumes, and most beans. Common hybrid herbs include golden seal, ginseng, echinacea, chamomile, dong quai, aloe vera, nutmeg, comfrey, garlic. Hybrid foods are missing vital electrics. They are unnatural and high in both sugar and starch. They're devoid of proper mineral balance that all wild foods contain. So when we eat a lot of hybrid food and hybrid fruit and vegetables, that leads to mineral deficiencies that cause body to bring heavy minerals from the bones into the blood to buffer the sugar. This hybrid sugar is not completely recognized by the liver and pancreas. The minerals and sugar are then spilled off into the urine. Hybrid sweet fruits and sweet starchy vegetables can overstimulate you and cause you to lose minerals. Hybrid foods are taken out of their natural content and will not assimilate in the body completely, instead stored as a toxin. They will also damage the mucous membranes. Hybrid foods can feed fungal conditions like candida, where non-hybrid or wild fruit will not lead to such a condition. 99% of the food to us available today are hybrid, high in starch and sugar, and carry traces of cyanide poisoning. 50% of these hybrids are more detrimental than others. See acid-alkaline chart for a complete nutritional guide of the foods that are less harmful and detrimental to the body. So wow, man, that's quite a mouthful right there. So, I don't know if I believe in that. I mean, people could write anything they want, and yes, it totally sounds believable. So I would tend to disagree with many of the things in there. Let's talk more about some hybrids, some other quotes that I found online. It says, stay away from seedless foods. Seedless foods are not able to reproduce themselves in nature. They include seedless citrus fruits, especially seedless oranges, seedless grapes, seedless watermelons, some types of dates, specifically medjool dates, seedless pineapples, raisins, seedless grapefruits. A note about bananas. Yes, we all love bananas, at least most of us do. It seems that to be a complete food, so satisfying and healthy. However, did you know that non-hybrid bananas contain seeds that resemble hard little pellets? The bananas we are finding in our markets with their little soft black seeds are actually highly hybridized. Wow, no more bananas for you 30 bad guys. So, no more bananas, or at least try to avoid them. About seedless fruits. Hybrid seedless fruits are very high in sugar, therefore they take the water out of your body. Drinking a smoothie, very popular today, containing hybrid fruits, overload the body and creates thirst. Note, if you find yourself overly thirsty, celery is a good way to rehydrate the body. Wait, didn't they just say that celery is also another hybrid food? Hybrid vegetables. Many vegetables can also be called hybrid. They are heavily cultivated and protected by pesticides and fertilizers from insects, birds, fungi, as well as the worms found in nature. They are all grown in an artificial environment and would not be able to survive if grown in a wild state. Hybrid vegetables to avoid: beets, corn, potatoes, carrots, alfalfa, sprouts, beans, soybeans. Note that this means the healthy carrot juice you have been drinking also is a hybrid food. Hybrid carrots contain extremely high sugar content and do not contain the healthy minerals God intended. The missing nutrients in hybrid foods. As a result of genetic altering, we can see that hybrid foods do not contain the same combination of minerals that they would contain if they were grown wild in uncultivated soil that has not been treated with fertilizer or been stripped of its nutrients by multiple crop plantings. if we eat too many hybrid foods, our bodies will begin to show signs of mineral deficiencies, something I've seen all too often in my clinical practice. Wow, man. So that really kind of gets you guys down on hybrid foods. Like, man, I'm not going to eat those things. Those things are crappy, right? Well, there's like some mixed truths in here. There's actually a lot of mixed truths in here. So let me go ahead and state my opinions on this matter. So, number one, we are all hybrids. Most fruit of today is highly hybridized. So, hybrids happening by two plants in nature, in the wild, even if there was no man, being sexual, exchanging pollen, creating seeds, and new plants. And so, hybridization would occur whether man intervened or not. That being said, man can and does and have been intervening in plant reproduction for a couple hundred years. And what happens is, the easy thing is the roses, right? There's a red rose, there's a white rose. You kind of like breed those together and you get a pink rose, right? And is there a harm in a pink rose? Or, same thing happens with fruit. You got a red apple, you got a green apple, and you cross them, you get a pink apple or something like that. And so man has been actually hybridizing or crossing different parents of the same plant family. It's like having my parents make me get together with a Chinese girl and have kids so that they would have the desired outcome, a half Chinese baby. I think my mom would like that. But, say I don't want to get with that Chinese girl. Well, plants don't have, a say, and we just cross-pollinate them and breed them no matter what. Now, I think that this kind of breeding, even though we are breeding for certain characteristics, whether it's color, whether it's shippability, whether it's nutrition in some cases, or whether it's flavor and taste, which is probably not often a hybrid trait that they look for anymore. It's mostly about, profitability and keeping the money and, how long will it ship, how early can you pick it unripe, and how long will it stay in transport and not go bad and not rot. So we've selected for different traits between the same plant species for a long time, and I don't have any issues with that. So, this text that I read out would made it seem like hybrids are really terrible. So that's my truth. Let's go into some further truths about why some of what I read may be true, actually. So, there is a section down here that talks about we can see that hybrid foods do not contain the same combinations of minerals that they would if they were grown in the wild and uncultivated soil that has been not treated with fertilizer or been stripped of its nutrients by multiple crop plantings. So this is a half-truth, and believing this completely, in my opinion, may get you in trouble. So the truth is everything has been hybridized, and in the conventional agricultural system, they're adding 3 minerals back into the soil, NPK. And, if it's not grown in the wild, which there may be more minerals because we're not stripping the nutrition out of the soil, and nature in its own right, when left on its own, will take care of its own soil. But when we grow things repetitively and only add 3 minerals, and let me remind you guys, the periodic table of the elements that you guys learned in high school had over 100 minerals in it, and in the garden behind me, I'm adding 70 to 90 minerals minimum in the garden behind me. So I'm bringing back the Garden of Eden in my backyard. Unfortunately, in pretty much all conventional and even organic agriculture, they're not adding these trace minerals back into the soil. They're adding NPK. Why do they add NPK? Those 3 minerals, they've done a lot of research, show that if you add those minerals, the plants appear to be healthy. They grow large fruit, which you can sell for more money. While there is other research that shows you could maybe add about another dozen more minerals for, higher quality plants. There's other research that shows if you add a wide spectrum, you're going to get the best quality foods. And, if we were living here in North America like 300 years ago, the soils would be rich and full of nutrients, but we've farmed them so much, we've taken all that stuff out, and we're not giving back and putting back into the soil. So, in my opinion, virtually all the conventional food and probably most all the organic food you're buying at your local health food store and supermarket don't have the nutrients that they had, just 50 years ago before we started this heavy industrial commercial agriculture. That's why it's better to support your local farmers, and you want to ask them if they're adding things like the trace minerals, and ask them what are you adding as your trace minerals, or better yet, take the power into your own hands and grow your own food in the trace minerals. I do have a video on YouTube that I go over what to ask farmers at the farmers market so that you can get the highest quality food. Also, I have another video on how to test the food at the farmers market so you can actually see the quality of the food before you buy it. And and I also teach you guys how to grow your own food, mineral dense, nutrient dense food in your own backyard on growingyourgreens.com. So I encourage you guys also to grow your own food. So it's not just the hybrid foods, which they're all hybrid, are being demineralized and don't have the mineral content they used to 50 years ago. Virtually all food is that way because we're not putting back in the soil what we've taken out over the many years, and it's rare to find somebody that actually does. So that's why I got to do it myself, man. Another comment I want to make is on this statement: if we eat too many hybrid foods, our bodies will begin to show signs of mineral deficiency, something I've seen all too often in my clinical practice. I don't have a clinical practice, but all I could say is I could comment on my opinion on this subject, and I think that in this day and age, many people are mineral deficient, and it'd be prudent, in my opinion. And what I do personally is I grow my own mineral dense food. I also eat seaweeds and take seaweed powders for extra minerals in my diet from the leafy greens. No, I don't sit there sucking on rocks or, eat like Celtic sea salt for my minerals, because Celtic sea salt and other salts basically are 95% plus sodium and 5% minerals, and those are, in a format that our bodies can't readily absorb and digest. We can, but it's not optimal. I want to get the minerals that the plants have absorbed from the ground, from the earth, and then they make it in a more bioavailable form for us. And that's what I recommend for you. So that's why I take the algae, the seaweeds, and most of all, importantly, leafy greens, and also other produce that I grow in mineral dense soil. So now that we talked about that, let's talk about some of the approved non-hybrid foods. And so on this list are vegetables: amaranth greens, avocado, asparagus, bell peppers, buro, banana, chayote, cucumber, dandelion greens, garbanzo beans, izote, cactus flower, cactus leaf, jicama, kale, lettuce, mushrooms, all except shiitake, mustard greens, nopal, okra, olives, onion, poke salad greens, sea vegetables, squash, spinach, string beans, tomato, cherry and plum only, tomatillo, turnip greens, and zucchini. Let's see. Let's go into the non-hybrid fruits according to this list. Let's see. Of course, no canned or seedless fruits, but you can eat apples, bananas. Only the small ones or the buro mid-sized ones. Berries, all varieties. Elderberries in any form. No cranberries. Cantaloupe, cherries, currants, dates, figs, grapes, seeded, limes, key limes preferred with seeds. Mango, melon seeded, orange, Seville or sour preferred, difficult to find. Papayas, peaches, pears, plums, prunes, raisins, seeded, soft jelly, coconut, sugar, apples. So this would make you think that, oh, these things I could eat. But in my opinion, some of these foods are actually not only hybridized, but also GMO. So for example, papayas. Papayas are being hybridized. If it's a papaya from Hawaii, and it's not organic, it's probably GMO. And I think that's like the Jeff Foxworthy. How do you know if you're a redneck or something like that? It's probably GMO if it's a papaya, or soy, or even corn. So I think they leave out corn off this list, so that's good. So corn, I just don't recommend any GMO. Let's talk about GMO for a minute. So GMO, genetically modified organisms, or transgenic crops. That means it's like, they're crossing like a kale leaf, like I have behind me, with a human being, or a tomato with a fish. A fish and tomato would never make love or trade pollen. And so this is something that has to happen with man interventions. Hybridization through crossing a white flower with a red flower to make a pink one could happen in nature if we just planted them next to each other. But we just speed up the process. But, a fish having sex with a kale leaf or tomato would never happen in nature. So I am adamantly opposed to genetically modified organisms that have to happen with electron guns and all kinds of crazy stuff, and would not happen naturally in nature. I'm all about learning from nature and modeling nature as much as I can and as possible. And of course, whenever possible, helping nature along a little bit as well. Like, nature would automatically remineralize the soils after time by having another glacial ice age, which I wouldn't like to happen anytime soon. But I like to take the glacial rocks and actually spread them in my garden so that I could speed up the process, because it's not happening through nature, because we've sucked out all the nutrition out of the soils. Some other things on the list here that just kind of strike me as odd are, dates, for example. I mean, it's well known that, it says dates are okay on this list, but every list is a little bit different. But it says dates are okay on this list. Another list that I said, it said, dates are hybrid, especially medjool, but this list says they're okay. All dates that are commercially farmed are hybrid varieties and are clones of the original plant. So at some point, a date pit was planted, and date pits actually have a long-term viability, thousands of years actually. You could plant a date pit, then a tree came up. On the tree that comes up, or actually the palms are technically not trees, there's going to be the date fruit, hopefully. And then you eat the date fruit. If you like that one, then it's like, wow, I like the dates off that tree. If you just take that seed and plant it again, you're not going to get the same tree. What the date trees or the date palms produces, they produce offshoots. And I have another video on YouTube explaining this on when I visited the date farm. The trees have offshoots, and you cut the offshoot, then you plant that. So all medjool dates originated from one tree that cuttings or offshoots have been spread around to share with others. So they're all genetic clones. I mean, if you take a date pit and you plant it, it will produce another tree, but it will not produce the same date you ate. And actually, it may not even be a fertile tree. It may not even produce dates for you. Let's look at some of the approved vegetables on the list. It said cucumbers are an approved fruit. Actually, cucumbers start out as these little things called gherkins. And I know in some countries they call gherkins cucumbers, but actually there's these things called gherkins. And I grow West Indian gherkins, and also I've grown some Mexican sour gherkins, and these are just little small cucumbers that are like, they're the wild components of what cucumbers became into, what we breeded them into. And they're way different, man. Some of them will be like way bitter if they're just not grown just right, if their plants are stressed out. Some will be really sour. I mean, they're a trip. I definitely encourage you guys to grow more wild foods whenever you can find them, and when they're, edible and not poisonous. For example, I have grown wild carrots, and carrots is something on the do not eat list, and I've grown wild carrots. These are the carrots that occur in nature, and wild carrots, let me tell you, they're really small and they're really fibrous. There's not much meat to them, if you know what I mean, but they are edible. And, we've hybridized the carrots to make them more edible for us. I mean, we've done the same with corn. Teosinte was a grain, it's a grass actually, that made these little small seeds that not really even edible, and we've actually basically selectively bred it into the corn of today that's now been genetically modified. So that being said, I don't necessarily eat corn that much at all, and besides being GMO, corn is not a vegetable, it's a grain, and I don't eat a whole lot of grains in my diet as well. But the cucumbers, most cucumbers nowadays, if you just go to the store, they're hybrids, man, but yet they're on their approved list of non-hybrid foods. I mean, dandelions are pretty safe with dandelions. I mean, every food is going to be more or less hybridized. Dandelions are something that has not been as hybridized as others, especially if you're just going out to your front lawn and picking them and eating them. Certain foods on the list have been more hybridized than others, so that concerns you. You want to do a Google search for the wild tomato. And, some wild foods actually may be poisonous, and we've had to bred the poison out of them. So you have to be careful about just eating any wild foods. Before eating any wild foods or any weed foods, you want to be 110% sure it is actually edible. So I do encourage you guys to get a edible weed guide to ensure that you are eating, edible foods if you are picking wild foods. And, while I do like to harvest my own wild foods grown in nature, because in my opinion, they're probably more nutrient dense than foods grown in conventional agriculture, even in some organic agriculture. But in my opinion, they're not as nutrient dense as foods that I'm growing in a controlled environment, where I'm specifically adding the trace minerals and the soil biologics to ensure my plants are being grown in the best conditions. Because in nature, while it hasn't been, harvested the heck out of, and plants have been grown there naturally, it may still have runoff and not the nutrition in there that I would like. So the best of all worlds is go out to nature, harvest seeds of the wild plants you want to eat that are edible, bring them back to your garden and cultivate them in your soil, in the rock dust, in the rich compost, both fungal and bacterial dominated compost, and get the best of all worlds in your own backyard or front yard. So one of the things I also want to talk about is, here's another list I found online, is about hybrid fruits. They say seedless watermelon, seedless grapes, seedless apples, bananas, several variety of dates, especially medjools, kiwis, seedless pineapples, seedless citrus fruits, seedless persimmons, and it says the tiny black seeds in kiwi and bananas are not viable. Well, another point that I have is that, I'm coming at you and giving you guys my opinions on this as being an 18-year raw food, as somebody who's been eating fresh fruit and vegetable diet for the last 18 years, and also gardening. So I got my garden behind me, and, I've looked into, different hybrids and heirlooms, and I've actually even made my own cross-pollination and varieties and saved my own seeds and all this kind of stuff. I mean, hybrids occur all the time. Hybrids are natural. I would say do not be scared of the hybrids. Be more scared of how your food is being grown, because if you're buying conventional produce, it's basically being grown in fertilizer where they add NPK, which is 3 minerals, which means if something's grown with 3 minerals, the majority of the content in there is going to be 3 minerals, and it's going to be missing the spectrum of other 70, 90 minerals. So you really want to be growing and eating some nutrient-dense food to make sure you get the minerals. But growing food with 3 minerals is like, for me, feeding your kids McDonald's. I mean, I grew up on McDonald's, and there's plenty of people that live on McDonald's without eating much else. But, they're, in my opinion, not the healthiest kind of people. And growing vegetables with NPK fertilizer is not the healthiest vegetables, but vegetables are still healthier, and fruits are still healthier grown conventionally than eating McDonald's, for example. But they're not as healthy as growing vegetables and fruits with 90 minerals and eating foods that have a full spectrum of minerals so that you don't have those mineral deficiencies. So I really want you to be more concerned about the way your food is being grown than if it's hybrid or not, because in my definition, everything is a hybrid. Some of the things that kind of just makes me wonder about this list is, here's more hybrid foods. It says, kiwis are a hybrid fruit, and it says the tiny black seeds in kiwi and bananas are not viable. So I have an episode where I show a banana with the full-on seeds, and those seeds are viable, and there's not a whole lot of banana to eat. So maybe in the real world, if we didn't hybridize bananas, we wouldn't really be eating them because it's a lot of seeds, or we'd just be eating a lot of seeds and getting a higher fat percentage in our diet. But the kiwi seeds in kiwis, you guys could try this. You guys could take kiwis, take out the seeds, and look up on YouTube how to sprout the seeds, and you could sprout the seeds in kiwis. So they are viable, but yet this list says they're not viable. So, I don't know where people dream this stuff up, if they're conjured up an ethereal spirit or told this in a dream, then they come out with all this stuff on hybrids on why it's so bad. I think what it does, it just distracts people from eating more fresh fruits and vegetables. I mean, basically, if it's a fruit or vegetable, if it's not genetically modified, it's going to be far healthier than a packaged or bottled or processed food or even animal products, in my opinion. And I want to encourage you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. So that being said, if you are still concerned about the whole hybrid thing, it freaks you out, which you should not be at this point, I do always encourage you guys to do the best you can. So if I have the choice between seedless watermelon and seeded watermelon, and they're the same price, I'll get the seeded one. Most of the times the seeded one is less expensive, actually, and I'm saving money because people want the seedless ones because they don't have to deal with the seeds. Well, the seeds are full of nutrition. So some people might say hybrid foods contain less nutrition. Well, there's a few factors involved. Number one, it depends how that food was grown. So would I rather have a conventional seeded watermelon or a seedless watermelon that I grew on my property in my soil? Oh, dude, I'd pick the seedless watermelon I grew in my soil because it's going to be far more nutritious than the other one. Same given factors. Say you get a seedless watermelon and a seeded watermelon grown on the same farm under the same conditions. Well, I would choose the seeded watermelon under all circumstances because the seeds contain nutrients. That's if you're eating the seeds, but most of you guys don't eat the seeds. A really nice way I like to include the seeds, while you can chew them up, they're kind of good actually. You want to chew them up really good to get the best extraction out of them. The way I like to consume the seeds in watermelon is just take the watermelon, the red, and the seeds, put in the Vitamix, you gotta have a powerful blender, blend it up, and then strain it out. And that watermelon liquid, or the watermelon water you're making, I don't call it a juice because we didn't put it through a juicer, it's blended. I'll strain it out, and then you'll kind of get some of the fatty acid content off the seeds into your water, and actually it'll taste quite good, that watermelon blended smoothie that you have there with 100% watermelon. I always encourage you guys to get the seeded fruits, but don't be scared of the seedless fruits. If they have seedless watermelon or nothing and you really feel like a watermelon, don't beat yourself up over buying seedless watermelon. But if you are concerned still about the hybrid stuff, I would recommend to, number one, start growing your own foods. You can go wild harvest seeds in the wild of plants that are edible, and I've done this. I've got some awesome stinging nettles that I harvested the seeds for in Germany, brought back and grow them in my garden in nutrient-dense soil. Definitely really good. And besides wild harvesting your own seeds, which can be difficult and you might not know what seeds to get, I recommend, getting a seed catalog. They're currently out of this year's seed catalog. This is actually the Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Catalog. And this would make a nice magazine, just for your coffee table as a centerpiece to leave out all year long. So if people come over, they could kind of pick it up and, what's that? And they could look through it. And there's some amazing pictures in here. And just reading through this, these are all heirloom seeds. So these are non-commercial hybrid seeds, because that's a whole different definition. But you can actually grow these, save the seeds, and they will grow again into the same exact plant. And some of these are amazing, and these are like 100-year-old, sometimes seeds or more. So they've been, less meddled with, if you want to think of it in that way. And some are actually more wild than their, more cultivated counterparts. But some may not be. But nonetheless, there's genetic diversity. And that's what I want you guys to focus on, is genetic diversity. I mean, in here there's different red tomatoes, there's white tomatoes, there's cherry tomatoes. They have all different kinds of different plants. Let's see. Oh, let me show you the gherkins. They got those gherkins in here, more wild cucumbers if I could find them. So here's the wild cucumbers I was talking about, or the more wild cucumbers. Here's your standard cucumber right here. It's a Boston pickling. Oh, here's the lemon cucumber. And here's another white cucumber that I've grown. They're quite delicious. They're my favorite. But here's the West Indy burr gherkins. These are awesome. Here's some other ones that I've grown before. The Mexican sour gherkins in general. More wild foods are actually less sweet. They don't have as much sugar in them for temperate climate crops, although tropical fruits still are probably pretty sweet. But anyways, in this catalog, you're going to learn about a whole bunch of different varieties of fruits that you've never eaten before, and each one tastes a bit different. Plus, each one has a whole spectrum of different nutrients and phytochemicals and vitamins and minerals than others, because every plant's just a little bit different. And there's so many different flavors. The melons in here are really cool, and some of the different leafy greens as well. So this is an excellent way to get more, heirloom foods, which on some levels are better than hybrids and some levels not. Yes, even these heirlooms in here are technically hybrids because they're crosses between two plants that probably, humans were involved with. So, I want to sum this up really quick for you guys. In my opinion, all the plants on Earth are now hybrids. There's probably not too many original plants or food crops that we eat now that we ate back 1,000 years ago. That being said, some plants are less hybridized than others. For example, I have two examples here. This is, how many of you guys know this? This is a cactus fruit. This fruit is one of the seediest fruits in the world. If you're just trying to eat this, you'd peel it, then just eat it. You'll get a mouthful of seeds, and it's such a pain in the butt to eat. But because I have a Omega Vert juicer, I'm going to juice these guys, get the delicious juice out of them, and actually compost all the pulp. By getting the juice out, I'm going to get all the nutrition out of there and, grind up the seeds, so I'll get some nutrition out of the seeds and into me as well. But of course, you can also, just eat the whole thing, chew the seeds really well in your mouth, although the seeds are quite hard, and get the nutrition out of it. So I encourage you guys to, look for cactus fruits and look for less hybridized foods, because cactus fruits, they don't do a lot of cactus fruit breeding based on the research I've done. Another fruit that, hasn't been hybridized as much are more wild fruits, and that'd be like this. This is a loquat that I grew myself. And the loquat, let me go ahead and show you guys. If we bite into that, like 60% of this fruit is just a pit. More wild foods have less flesh, more pit. Wow, that's a good one. This is grown in mineral-rich soil. So, but this has an amazing flavor because I grew it. Although they do have named varieties of loquats, this tree was actually off. I got seeds out of a loquat I wild harvested, and then I just dumped in the ground at my place. And 7 years later, I got a huge tree making me lots of fruit to eat. So this would be less of a hybrid than a variety specifically grown for large fruit, because they have like the big Jim loquat, which has larger fruit than this if you want more fruit. I like to take whatever I could get, and I like genetic diversity and, experimenting and finding out what will grow. So, there is a way to minimize, hybridization and eat things that are less hybrid, but no matter what, you will not be able to avoid them, the hybrid foods, despite sticking to a list or not. In the end, I want to encourage you guys to eat more fruits and vegetables, and more importantly, instead of worrying if it's hybrid or not hybrid, worry about how it's grown. If it's grown in 70 to 90 plus trace minerals or not, or whether it's grown on NPK fertilizer, how fresh is the produce you're eating? Has it been shipped from California to New York City and been on a truck for 7 days, and then in the back room in the warehouse for 7 days, and then it put it out, and then you buy it 2 weeks later after it's been picked and cut. And within 24 hours of harvesting some certain produce items, up to 50% of certain nutrients can be lost. So that's why it's really important to me to grow my own food, to come out and pick it and eat it right after I harvested it for the highest level of nutrition. Plus, I'm growing, with good, rich soil. So hopefully after watching this episode, you're more familiar with what the term hybrid is, and more importantly, how to get the best quality food so you won't become mineral deficient and you'll get all the nutrition you need. Once again, I want to encourage you guys to eat a wide variety of foods. Just don't eat low quads all day in, day out. Don't go on a tomato only diet. You want to eat a little bit of all different kinds of foods, because every different food, in my opinion, is valuable. It has different phytochemicals and phytonutrients and vitamins and minerals and a whole host of other healthy things that are going to be good for us, including its water and also importantly the minerals. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Once again, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time, and remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're the best.